Book of Heaven, Volume 17, Part 5. October 11th, 1924. The Love of God in Creating the Creature. How each sense is a communication between God and the soul. I was feeling very oppressed because of the privation of my sweet Jesus. Oh, how many fears arose within my soul! But the one that tormented me the most was that my Jesus no longer loved me as before. Now, while in this state, I felt my shoulders being clasped, and hearing the voice of Jesus in my ear, I heard him say to me, "My daughter, why do you fear that I do not love you? Ah, if you knew also of my love for all creatures in general, you would be surprised. With how much love did I not create the creature? With how many senses did I not endow her? Each sense was a communication that I left between me and her. Her thought was communication between my intelligence and hers. Her eye was communication between her light and mine. Her speech was a path of communication between her fiat and mine. Her heart between her love and mine. In sum, everything, breathing, motion, step, everything was communication between me and the creature. I acted as more than a father who, having to set a son up, not only prepares for him the house, the clothes, the food, and everything that can make his son happy, but gives virtue to his son and says to him, "We shall separate, it is true, but from afar you shall feel my life, and I yours. You shall feel my thought, and I yours. You, my breathing, my heartbeat, and I yours. So we shall be far and near, separated and inseparable. You shall feel my life, and I yours." But what the terrestrial father cannot do for his son, because it is impossible for him, I, celestial Father, did. As this son of mine came out to the light, after I myself had prepared for him the residence in this world, I placed such a tight bond between me and him that I was to feel his life within me, and the creature mine. And this is my love in general and for all. What should I tell you, then, of the special love I have had for you? Each suffering I have sent you was one more communication between me and you, and therefore one more adornment with which I embellished your soul. Each truth I have manifested to you was a particle of my qualities, with which I embellished and filled your soul. Each grace and each coming of mine to you were gifts that I poured upon you. I did nothing but multiply my communications almost at each instant, so as to portray in you my various beauties, my likeness, that you might live with me in heaven, and I might live with you on earth. After all this, you doubt about my love? Rather, I say to you, think about loving me, and I shall think of loving you evermore. October 17th, 1924. With how much love God loves the creature. How he raises her, nourishes her, and places the whole of his life at her disposal. I was thinking of the great love with which Jesus loves us. My mind wandered within the eternal love, and my sweet Jesus, moving in my interior, showed me spokes of light before my mind. Within these spokes there was a sun, and this sun contained as many rays for as many existing creatures. And each creature had a ray all for herself that gave her life, light, heat, strength, growth, everything that is necessary to form a life. It was delightful to see how each creature was attached to each ray of this sun, like a branch to the vine from which she had come out. And while my mind was wandering within this, my lovable Jesus said to me, "My daughter, see with how much love I love the creature. Before coming out to the light of the day of this world, she was already in my womb, and in delivering her, I did not leave her. A ray of light containing my life follows her in order to administer to her everything that is necessary so as to carry out this life. And with how much care do I not raise her? With how much love do I not water her? I myself make myself light, heat, food, defense. And when she completes her days in time, along the path of that same ray, I withdraw her into my womb, to let her wander throughout the celestial fatherland. My love for the creature makes itself as more than sun that I formed in the azure heavens. Even more, the sun I created for the benefit of the human nature is nothing other than the shadow of my true sun. In fact, the sun of the atmosphere does not form the plants, nor does it give them water so as to not let them wither, nor does it provide all those aids which are necessary so that the plants may grow beautiful and strong, and men, even if blind, may enjoy its light. It only does its office of illuminating and warming, and it moves on. And if the plants are not watered, it can do nothing to communicate its effects to them. Rather, it withers them even more. On the other hand, I, who am the true sun of souls, do not leave them, either at night or at daytime. I myself form the souls. I give them the water of my grace, so as not to let them wither. I nourish them with the light of my truths. I strengthen them with my examples. I give them the wind of my caresses to purify them, the dew of my charisms to embellish them, the arrows of my love to warm them. In sum, there is nothing I do not do. I am all for them, and I place the whole of my life at each one's disposal for their good. But how much ingratitude on the part of creatures! They seem to be attached like branches to my vine, not out of love, but by force, because they cannot do without me. And so they grow like those branches that, not receiving all the good humors that the vine contains, grow thin, without ever forming mature grapes, but unripe ones, such as to embitter my divine taste. Ah, if all knew how I love their souls, all would be captured by the strength and attractiveness of my love, and they would love me more. Therefore, you love me, and may your love expand so much as to love me for all. October 23rd, 1924. The divine will operating and dominating in the creature on earth forms a sweet enchantment for God and his justice, while in heaven it is God who forms the enchantment of all the blessed. I am going through bitter days because of the privation of my sweet Jesus. Oh, how I miss his lovable presence. Even just the memory of his sweet words, his wound to my poor heart, and I say to myself, and now where is he? Where did he direct his steps? Where could I find him? Everything is over. I shall no longer see him. I shall no longer hear his voice. We shall no longer pray together. How hard is my destiny. What torment, what pain. Ah, Jesus, how you have changed. How could you have run away from me? But though far away, on the wings of your will, wherever you are, I send you my kisses, my love, my cry of sorrow that tells you, come back to the poor exiled one, to the little newborn who cannot live without you. But while I was saying this and other things, my lovable Jesus moved in my interior, and extending his arms, he clasped me very tightly, and I said to him, my life, my Jesus, I can endure no more. Help me. Give me strength. Do not leave me again. Take me with you. I want to come. And Jesus, interrupting my speaking, told me, my daughter, don't you want to do my will? And I, of course I want to do your will. But your will is also in heaven. So if until now I have done it on earth, from now on I want to come to do it in heaven. Therefore hurry, take me, do not leave me any more. I feel I can endure no more. Have pity on me. And Jesus again, my daughter, you do not know what my will on earth is. It shows how, after so many of my lessons, you have not understood well. You must know that the soul who lets my will live within herself, as she prays, as she suffers, as she operates, as she loves, and so forth, forms a sweet enchantment to the divine pupils in such a way as to enclose with her acts the gaze of God in that enchantment, in such a way that, as I am captured by the sweetness of this enchantment, it has the virtue of preventing my justice from pouring itself out with all its fury upon the face of the earth, with many of the chastisements that creatures draw upon themselves with their grave sins. Because my justice too receives the enchantment of my will operating in the creature. Do you think it is trivial that the Creator sees in creatures who are still living upon earth his own will operating, triumphing, dominating, with the same freedom with which it operates and dominates in heaven? This enchantment is not present in heaven, because in my kingdom my will dominates as if in its own house, and the enchantment is formed within myself, not outside of me. Therefore it is I. It is my will that enchants all the blessed with an enrapturing strength, in such a way that their pupils are enclosed in my enchantment, to delight in it eternally. So it is not they who form the sweet enchantment for me, but I for them. And so my pupils are free, and receive no fascination. On the other hand, while living in the creature who is crossing the exile, my will is as though operative and dominant in the house of the creature. And this is why she is the one who forms the enchantment for me. She fascinates me, and makes my gaze receive such attraction as to capture me, to fix my pupils upon her, without being able to move them. Ah, you do not know how necessary this enchantment is in these times. How many evils shall come? The peoples shall be forced to eat one another up. They shall be taken by such rage as to become ferocious, one against the other. But the greatest fault is of the leaders. Poor peoples, they have true slaughterers, incarnate devils as leaders, who want to make a slaughter of their own brothers. If the evils were not grave, your Jesus would not leave you as though without him. You fear that it may be because of other things that I deprive you of me? No, no. Be reassured. It is my justice that depriving you of me wants to unload itself upon creatures. You, however, never go out of my will, so that its sweet enchantment may spare the people's worse evils. October 30th, 1924. Why the angels are angels, and why there are different choirs of angels. The pains of love suffered by Jesus are the most bitter, the most cruel. They are more painful than those of his very passion. I feel I cannot entrust my sorrowful secrets to the pen, nor express on paper what I feel within my martyred heart. Ah, yes, there is no martyrdom which can compare to the martyrdom of the privation of my sweet Jesus. The martyr is wounded and killed in the body, while the martyrdom of his privation wounds the soul. It lacerates her in her inmost fibers. And what is worse, it kills her without making her die, to strike her continuously on the iron anvil of pain and of love. And as I pass over the pains, I feel in my interior, because these are things which I am unable to say, as one of the poorest beggars. I would like to beg everyone, the angels, the saints, my Queen Mamma, the whole of creation, for a word, a little prayer to Jesus for me, so that prayed by all, he may be moved to compassion for the little daughter of his will, and let her come back from the hard exile in which I find myself. Then I was thinking to myself about what had passed through my mind. That is, that instead of Jesus, it seemed to me as if I had my angel near me. And I said to myself, and why the angel and not Jesus? At that moment, I felt him move in my interior, saying to me, "My daughter, Do you want to know why the angels are angels? Why they have kept themselves beautiful and pure as they came out of my hands? Because they have always remained in that primary act in which they were created. Therefore, being in that primary act of their existence, they are in that single act of my will, that not knowing succession of acts does not change. It neither decreases nor increases, and contains within itself all possible and imaginable goods. And the angels, keeping themselves in that single act of my will that issued them to the light, maintain themselves immutable, beautiful, and pure. They have lost nothing of their original existence, and all their happiness is in maintaining themselves voluntarily in that single act of my will. They find everything in the circuit of my will, nor do they want, in order to be happy, anything other than what my will administers to them. But do you know why there are different choirs of angels, one superior to the other? There are some that are closer to my throne. Do you know why? Because to some, my will manifested one act alone of my will. To some, 2. To some, 3. To some, 7. And in each thing pertaining to the additional act that my will manifested, some were made superior to others, and were rendered more capable and worthy to be close to my throne. So the more my will manifests itself, and they keep themselves in it, the more they are raised, embellished, made happy, and superior to others. See then how everything is in my will, and in their keeping themselves, without ever going out, in that same will from which they came. And from their greater or lesser knowledge of my supreme will are the different choirs of angels constituted, their distinct beauties, the different offices, and the celestial hierarchy. If you knew what it means to know my will more, to do one more act in it, to keep oneself and to act in that will of mine that one has known, by which the office, the beauty, the superiority of each creature are constituted, oh, how much more would you appreciate the different knowledges I manifested to you about my will? One more knowledge about my will raises the soul to such a sublime height that the very angels remain stupefied and enraptured, and they confess me incessantly, Holy, holy, holy. My will manifests itself and calls things from nothing, and forms beings. It manifests itself and embellishes. It manifests itself and raises the creature higher. It manifests itself and expands more the divine life in the creature. It manifests itself and forms in her new portents never before known. So from the many things I have manifested to you about my will, you can comprehend what I want to make of you, and how I love you, and how your life must be a chain of continuous acts done in my will. If the creature, like the angel, never went out of that primary act within which my will issued her to the light, what order, what portents would not be seen on earth? Therefore, my daughter, never go out of your origin, in which my will created you, and let your primary act be always my will. Then after this, with my thought, I placed myself near my Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, and I prayed him to let me penetrate into that love with which he so much loved me. And my Jesus, moving again in the depth of my interior, told me, "My daughter, enter into my love, and never go out of it, and run after it, or stop within my love itself, that you may comprehend well how much I have loved the creature. Everything in me is love toward her. In creating this creature, the divinity intended to love her always. So in everything, inside and outside of her, it was to run toward her with a continuous and incessant new act of love. Therefore I can say that in each thought, gaze, word, breath, heartbeat, and in all the rest of the creature, runs an act of eternal love. But if the divinity intended to love this creature always and in everything, it was because it wanted to receive in everything the requital of the new and incessant love of the creature. It wanted to give love in order to receive love. It wanted to love to be loved in return. But it was not so. Not only did the creature not want to keep the rhythm of love and respond to the echo of the love of her Creator, but she rejected this love. She denied it and offended it. At this affront, the divinity did not stop, but continued its new and incessant love toward the creature. And since the creature would not receive it, heaven and earth remained filled with it, waiting for the one who would take this love so as to receive the requital of it. In fact, when God decides, when he proposes, all adverse events do not change him, but he remains immutable in his immutability. And this is why, moving on to another excess of love, I, Word of the Father, came upon earth, and taking on a humanity, I gathered within myself all this love which filled heaven and earth, in order to requite the divinity with as much love or as much it had given and was to give to creatures. And I constituted myself love of each thought, of each gaze, of each word, heartbeat, movement, and step of each creature. Therefore, my humanity, even in its littlest fiber, was worked by the hands of the eternal love of my celestial Father, in order to give me the capacity to be able to enclose all the love that the divinity wanted to give to creatures, so as to give to it the love of all, and constitute myself love of each active creature. So each one of your thoughts is encircled by my incessant acts of love. There is nothing inside and outside of you that is not surrounded by my repeated acts of love. This is why, in this garden, my humanity moans, pants, agonizes, feels crushed under the weight of so much love. Because I love, and I am not loved in return. The pains of love are the most bitter, the most cruel. They are pains without pity, more painful than my very passion. Oh, if they loved me, the weight of so much love would become light, because when love is loved in return, it remains quenched and satisfied in the very love of the beloved. But when it is not loved in return, it goes mad, it raves, and it feels the love that it had issued being repaid with an act of death. See then how much more bitter and painful was the passion of my love, because if in my passion they gave me only one death, in the passion of love they made me suffer as many deaths for as many acts of love as came out of me, for which I was not requited. Therefore you, my daughter, come to requite me for so much love. In my will you shall find all this love, as though in act. Make it your own, and together with me constitute yourself love of each active creature, to give me the requital of the love of all. You have reached the end of Volume 17, Part 5. Fiat.